Welcome to this Strategic Explainer. Look, we're here today with one massive goal in mind, helping you absolutely crush your upcoming biology exam on ecosystems. We are going to take the densest textbook material, filter out the noise, and break it down into highly visual, scoreable points. If you want to know exactly how to prepare for this test and what those graders are looking for, you are in the exact right place. Here is our roadmap for the session. First, energy flows and food chains. Second, the complex cycles. Third, succession, changing ecosystems. And fourth, exam strategy, applying knowledge. Let's get into it.
All right, Section 1, energy flows and food chains. We're kicking things off with energy flows because they are the absolute foundation of how ecosystems run, and it's a heavily tested topic. Now, a crucial point here is understanding the difference between what plants make and what they actually pass on. Think of it kind of like a business. Gross primary production, or GPP, is the total gross revenue, all the solar energy a plant captures and turns into glucose. But plants have overhead. They've got to live. The energy they use just to survive, their respiration, gets subtracted from that total. What you're left with is net primary production, the profit. That's the actual usable biomass that's on the menu for herbivores.
And you can see exactly how that energy profit moves through a real system. On the left, we've got a typical food web from the Dutch island of Ameland, flowing from algae to shrimp all the way up to birds. Now, look at how that maps onto the energy pyramids on the right. Because energy is lost as heat and bodily functions at every single step, the available biomass just plummets as you move up the trophic levels. It's literally why you have millions of algae, but maybe only a handful of top predators like a peregrine falcon in that same ecosystem.
Okay, lock your eyes on this block scheme. This is a classic exam visual, and you absolutely need to know how to decode it. The big band coming in, that's I for intake, the total food eaten. Right away, a huge chunk drops out as F for feces, which is just undigested waste. The energy that actually gets absorbed is then split up. A massive portion goes to R for respiration, just keeping the animal warm and moving. That leaves only this tiny little arrow at the top, P for productivity, as actual new growth. Pro tip. When this pops up on your test, your Venus reference book, specifically Table 93A2, is going to be your absolute best friend.
Moving right along to Section 2, the complex cycles. We've traced the energy, but now let's see how matter loops continuously through carbon and nitrogen cycles.
So the carbon cycle is generally pretty straightforward, but graders really love to test your depth here. Keep an eye out for questions that ask you to contrast the fast and slow cycles. The fast biological cycle is all about photosynthesis and respiration, carbon zipping back and forth between plants, animals, and the air. But don't forget the slow geological cycle. That's the carbon that gets locked away in massive sinks for millions of years, like deep ocean limestone deposits or underground fossil fuels.
All right, take a deep breath. The nitrogen cycle is notoriously tricky, and I can almost guarantee it'll be on your exam. To beat it, just memorize these three main steps. First, aminification. This is where decomposers break down dead proteins and urea into ammonium. Second is nitrification. Specialized bacteria take that ammonium and convert it into nitrates, which plants can actually use. Crucially, though, this step needs oxygen. And third, denitrification. Different bacteria turn those nitrates back into nitrogen gas, which floats off into the atmosphere. This last step happens in anaerobic, oxygen-poor soils. Now, when you inevitably see this massive, highly detailed nitrogen cycle diagram on the test, whatever you do, do not panic. It looks like a lot with all the different bacteria names, right? But here is your strategic advantage. Just open Venus Table 93G. You do not need to memorize every single bacterial strain. You just need to know their jobs and exactly where to look them up. Follow the arrows, check the oxygen conditions, and trust the diagram. All right, on to Section 3, succession, changing ecosystems. Let's explore how environments totally transform over time through this really incredible, predictable process. You can think of succession as an ecosystem's life story, and exams always want you to track this timeline. It kicks off at the pioneer stage. Imagine a barren sand dune facing harsh winds and crazy temperatures. Over decades, as those tough early plants die, they build up a nutrient-rich humus layer in the soil. That transitions the area into the subclimax stage, where shrubs can finally take root. Give it enough time, and it hits the climax stage, a highly stable, complex, deeply interconnected forest. If a question asks you to compare these stages, and honestly, it probably will, use this exact contrasting framework. The pioneer stage is totally dominated by abiotic, non-living factors like wind and salt.
Because it's so harsh, only a few tough species make it, meaning biomass is low. The climax stage? Total opposite. It's ruled by biotic factors. You've got a massive web of species, huge biomass, and fierce interspecific competition. Hit those specific keywords and you'll nail the grading rubric every single time.
Let's look at this real-world aerial view of Skiermonikoog. It perfectly visualizes this timeline literally laid out on the map. Notice how the vegetation shifts as you walk inland, away from the harsh sea. It starts with simple sea rocket right on the windy beach, builds up to marram grass, stabilizing the dunes, then transitions into dense shrubs like sea buckthorn, before finally settling into a thick climax forest further inland. It's succession, geographically frozen in time.
And finally, Section 4, Exam Strategy, Applying Knowledge. Knowing the biology is great, but knowing how to actually take the test, that's what gets you the grade. Let's break down some strategy. Okay, so you turn the page and see a dense pseudo-exam scenario like this one about duckweed and agriculture. It is so easy to get overwhelmed by the wall of text and the complex graphs. Panic sets in and you waste precious time. But take a breath, there's a system for this. To secure those points without the stress, aggressively apply this 4-step strategy. Step 1, form a picture. Cut through the fluff and ask yourself, what is the core biological concept here? Step 2, extract the data. Pinpoint exactly which graph axes are relevant and which binus tables you need to crack open. Step 3, draft the answer using that data. And Step 4, seriously the one everyone skips, check your work. Always double-check your drafted answer against the original prompt to make sure you didn't miss a sneaky secondary question.
Look at this highlighted text right here. It exposes a classic point-draining pitfall. If a question asks you for 2 explanations or 2 examples, format them distinctly. Use bullet points, use dashes, make it literally impossible for an exhausted grader who is skimming your paper to miss your points. If you bury 2 distinct answers inside one massive paragraph, you are begging to only get half credit. Make their job easy, and they will give you the marks.
So we've mapped the energy pyramids, we've traced the complex cycles, and we've unlocked the test strategies. Before you walk into that exam room, I want you to ask yourself, if an ecosystem is in a constant, invisible state of succession and cycling, what will the climax stage of our own human environment look like 1,000 years from now? Keep that curiosity alive, trust your tools, and absolutely crush that exam.